Good evening, everyone. My name is Tiana Piles. I am a co-founder of BSTARS, Breastfeeding Sisters that are receiving support. We are joined this evening by Nikki Hunter Greenaway, a very special guest on a very special night. You're like, what? It's not Wednesday. What's going on? Look, we just roll through, right, Nikki? It's almost like we know things come up. And it's just like,
Right?
hey, we're either going to stress about it or we just going to reschedule and roll through. So I figured
I appreciate
hopefully, that helped to not cause any more wrinkles because, us beautiful queens don't need any of
it.
that.
For sure. And gray
Absolutely.
hair. And gray hair.
Any of that. Right. Yep. So we're like, how do you do it, sis? Oh, we just don't have no worries over here. They're at least the ones we can control. But again, I am joined by Nikki Hunter Greenaway, and we are going to talk breastfeeding and intimacy. I'm so excited for this topic because even in 2022, girl, why is it that we are still having to? Why are women embarrassed about their bodies?
I guess just fear of what people will say. Like some things we just didn't talk about when we were younger, like our parents didn't talk about,
Right.
or we still see there's still the sexualization of breasts, right? So we think
Absolutely.
of like,
Yes.
oh, our breasts and our babies, and I don't want to think about sex, and like all the things. Like I don't know who to talk to about it. Like, can you really talk to your mama? Like,
Right.
can you talk to your auntie? And I think I was truly like blessed that I was raised by some ratchet women. And I would say ratchet, but they were like very progressive and forward and just like, here's my body all the time. And they were very comfortable in their skin. So they talked about these things,
Like,
right? And so
uh-huh.
I just grew to talk about them. Like just a few minutes ago, I had all of my little props in here. And the kids walk in like, what are you doing with that vagina? And I'm like, getting ready for my class.
That's right. Girl, and you know what? I
So
love that. Like, first of all, I love that you were raised by some very aware women in your tribe.
yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of us still don't have that in our
Hmm.
families. But I love that your children, of course, call body parts what they are supposed to be
Oh
called.
yes.
Because I think that in a way helps us to know a vagina is a vagina, penis,
Hmm.
and all that. Speaking of, girl, I love your props. Oh my goodness, I love this. Oh my goodness, that's a vagina.
Yes.
A
Yes.
brown
And
vagina.
we have to call it that. We have to call it what it is,
Absolutely.
and I can't because it's a safety thing. It really
Mhm.
is a safety thing for when our children are in trouble with sexual assault or abuse or things like that. We really need for them to know
Absolutely.
what the body part is called
Right?
and not necessarily giving it a term of endearment
Right. Right.
or something that is food related or things like that. So they call it what it is. And that I
Absolutely.
think when you raise aware children like that
Mhm.
and it's not mainstream, they go into the school system. And now I got the teacher calling. Your child was talking about vaginas today. And I'm like, what's your point?
Uh-huh. And yes.
Is someone having an issue?
Right. Right.
So she
Right.
was just telling the girls that you have to clean your vagina from front to back. That's what she was telling them because her mama told her that. And she didn't think the teacher said that's not appropriate. And I was like, oh, I guess they want UTIs. I don't know. But they
Girl,
parents need to watch my video.
girl, please. As rampant as bad gossip spreads, that's the kind of
Hmm.
gossip we need to spread right there.
Right. Front to back.
Girl, you better front to back that vagina. You don't want.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah. It's amazing how many different cycles in which we're trying to break with our children.
Hmm.
And I'm excited for that. I'm so excited for our children. I mean, the world is a scary thing,
Yes, it is.
but I'm joined by other moms and parents that, you know, are doing the same that I'm trying to do for my children. So hopefully, God willing, they will have some people to marry when they get old enough, you know,
Yes.
that are with it as well. And it's like, and then and then even if not, if our children end up with with others that are maybe not as aware, at least there's
Hmm.
somebody, you know.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so it's amazing where we sit just in shoot history, just
Right.
as Black people,
Hmm.
just all of this empowering things in which you are helping to help us reclaim with our bodies and breastfeeding. And of course, I know tonight we're talking more about breastfeeding and intimacy, and we will get to that. But it's just like, you know, there's so many things wrapped around that, you know, because of
Right.
course, you know, breasts do look real cute in a little V-neck sweater,
Right.
girl. You know, they can look
Right.
cute in a sweater and be in your baby's mouth as well.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly. And I think we often get confused, and we've had this like before we have children, we have our breasts lifted and things like that. And I think we feel some type of way about them once we start breastfeeding. They're like, oh, were they
Right.
not what they were? And I think if
Hmm.
we go into the relationship with our baby and with our bodies, knowing that our breasts were made for breastfeeding anyway. Like
Right.
my kids, they were like, so my daughter, she
Hmm.
walks in, my daughter's 5, and
Hmm.
she was like looking, and I was putting on my bra, and she was like, why haven't they fallen off? And I was like, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? She's like, you're not breastfeeding anymore. Like it, I'm like, oh, of course, because you know them just for breastfeeding.
That's it.
Like, and
Yep.
she's like, you don't even need them anymore. I'm like, well, dang, I mean, they ain't got to fall off, but that's a
Oh,
little
girl.
extreme.
Oh my goodness. You know, girl,
But
we already heartbroken when they stopped breastfeeding. That would just be
right,
that'd be
they're
the
already
worst. Just,
going
woo,
downward.
just, oh, I guess I'm done. Like,
So, but she was like, "Why haven't they fallen off?" Like it's like an appendage, like it's just like dead after
right,
that.
yep, which makes sense. Right. Oh my
Right, it
goodness.
makes sense though. So when we teach them that way, like she don't
Uh-huh.
know breast as a sexualized thing. So I think it's
Wonderful.
all about the way in which we teach them, and if they see it early, because a lot of people shield their kids if they're
Mhm,
breastfeeding one baby and they
mhm.
have a toddler or older kid or a teenager. Oh my
Right.
goodness, this happens with
Right.
teens where they're like, "Oh no, this is I'm breastfeeding." Um,
Mhm.
no, come on. The average
Right.
age of sex starting is 8. So if we really thinking about like what they've seen and what they haven't seen, they've seen a
Mhm.
breast before. Let's
Mhm.
show them in the correct way
Right.
of what they're really used for, you know? So
Right, right. And you know, you were talking about your daughter experience. I have
mhm,
3 boys, 1 girl. And
mhm,
so, like my oldest is my boy. And so I love the dynamic in which he's grown up, you know, with breast being seen, you know, in a nice shirt, but also being
mhm,
popped out to nurse his,
right,
you know, brothers and sisters.
right,
You know, so I'm hoping that in that dynamic of both our girls and our boys, that,
mhm,
you know, it's just empowering to be able to support, you know, their partner,
right,
to be able to, you know, just normalize it. Just a simple thing, of just, oh, girl, you know, that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you know, and I
right.
support you.
Right. Even with our elders as well, like us
Oh,
talking, it shouldn't bother them either. Like,
ooh,
oh, put a shirt. I'll be honest with y'all. I have not been to church since I had my one of my kids because that I just got they were like, you need to cover, you need to go be like it was. I'm like, Jesus was breastfed.
right,
Like, why you keep making a big deal? I did not feel comfortable in
mm,
that space.
girl.
And I was like, well, I'm just gonna do couch church until we can get some education up in there because they are not gonna keep making me feel bad. Because we
No.
need to really teach our elders. And I got my parents to a point, and especially my dad to a point, our grandparents to a point
Mhm.
where I'm like, didn't you breastfeed? Yeah, I breastfed, but we didn't have those fancy pumps, so we had to stop when I went back to work. I said, well, now that
Mm.
we got these fancy pumps, why don't we encourage some breastfeeding more than
Right,
what we do?
right,
Right.
right. Yeah, you are so right, girl. So, because our elders, oh my goodness, they can definitely do a doozy on our
Mhm.
breastfeeding, self-esteem, and everything as well, girl. That ain't even the intimate part. You know, the elders
Right.
aren't with us intimately, but you doing more than my partner's doing right now.
Right.
Yeah, this gets it's interesting because like for my children, their families from the deep South.
Mm-hmm.
And me and this unbroken chain of breastfeeding, I had a certain like bravery, but I was also very
Mm-hmm.
nice. I didn't realize the amount of women that didn't support or breastfeed also. And I was thinking more in the South that we would. And so when I went
Right.
down and their grandmama and family were kind of like, mm,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, what? For real?
Yes.
As fellow
Yes.
black women?
Mm-hmm.
And then my first baby was a chunky monkey girl. He was born
Mm-hmm.
at like 7 something, and in a month he was 16 pounds, all breast milk. So you
Mm-hmm.
can't tell me this baby isn't getting enough. You can't tell
Mm-hmm.
me nothing. And so I'm
Right.
sitting here, and I'm not necessarily covering up, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, I'm being very discreet. He's
Mm-hmm.
quiet. You can't say nothing. I know you want to feed the baby, but here I'm gonna give him
Right.
to you when he's done to birth. That's how y'all can bond.
Right. Right. And there's so many ways. And I think another thing that I've experienced here, I've lived in the South basically my whole life, lived up in Chicago for a little while, a little bit more progressive in Chicago. But being down here is like, you need to stop breastfeeding. That's for your man. That's for your partner.
Mm.
Those elders. And I'm like, wait, I don't want anybody touching me.
Whoa,
Like
wait. So wait, who told you this?
elders, elder women, black women. They were like, you need to stop doing that because he's gonna get jealous. Well,
Wow.
I said, well, we need some community education here. And that I'm feeding, this is a totally different interaction. And I think they see it as the same concept
Mm-hmm.
as intercourse or foreplay or things like that. This baby ain't doing nothing for me.
Right.
this is
Right.
this is an exchange of milk, nutrition, and all of that. That's what it
Right.
is. But they
Mm-hmm.
see it as something else, because they just hadn't been exposed to it.
Yeah, yeah. I thank you for segueing us on over in there because I
Oh,
could talk through this. No, I just, girl, like I said, informal conversation. So I just kind of let it take us where it does. And so yeah, but you're absolutely right. So once again, those elders need to be aware of what our bodies are meant for and to
Mhm.
support that as best they can, even through their
Yeah,
trauma. And
yeah.
also to figure out like this new space for our partners. Because
Mhm.
here it is, yeah. Obviously, you got pregnant. So maybe you did use a titty to, tantalize
Right,
and, all that
right.
good stuff. So now you're pregnant. And
Mhm.
so it's like, all right, thinking about breastfeeding. But you also
Right.
got this man over here who's used to be breastfed himself. So, it's like, how do you make sure when you're talking to a mother to make sure that she is feeling self-confident to know that it's going to be okay, first of
Mhm.
all, and that these are the things happening with her body, to prepare, and also some things that they can talk to about this new
Mhm.
experience with their partner.
Yeah, so we all need to have a come to Jesus talk during pregnancy. This is what's about to go down. And it really is, I think a lot of our jobs as lactation consultants, as birth workers and things like that are kind of like mini therapists in that we do a lot of counseling and we
Hmm.
do a lot of encouragement of communication.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
if you don't communicate, your needs will not be met.
Right.
Your physical needs, your mental
Right.
needs, or
Right.
emotional, financial, you know. So that's where when we talk about this space of breastfeeding and intimacy and returning to intimacy, or what does intimacy look like after you have your baby and postpartum intimacy, you have to
Mhm.
communicate with your partner. It's like, look, I plan to breastfeed. Okay, I'm going to need your help in doing these tasks, right? Because I'm going to be breastfeeding. Yeah, I know you want to feed the baby, but these are things that you can help me do. Now, but prior to that, there are certain things that would turn you on about your
Mhm.
partner, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
helping out can really be a turn on
Right. Right.
for a lot of people. So just talking about those things. And also when we become intimate, I may leak. How do you feel about that?
Right.
You
Right.
would be surprised at how many partners actually don't mind at all about the leaking. But
Yep.
it can throw off the breastfeeding parent because they're like, this is not cute. Like,
Right.
usually when it's happened with the baby, it's not cute. So it surely doesn't feel sexy then.
Right.
Um, so encourage them to pump before, just like have their mindset like, oh, you know, where if you're having a date night or,
Mhm.
a night in and the
Mhm.
baby, so I'm gonna put the baby down early, I'm
Right.
like, I'm gonna pump first
Mhm.
and then we can do what we do, like you have to, um, you kind of have to have a little prep time,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
also like if that leaking starts to happen, or if you like, you know what, that doesn't feel the way that I thought it
Right.
would,
Right.
you have to communicate that, right? You have to communicate that and be able to pivot. And
Right.
don't just say, you know what, we're gonna turn this. We're
Right.
done.
Right.
We're
Right.
done. We're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to be able to pivot.
How was it for you in those first moments of going from breastfeeding mom to trying to, reconnect, if you will, intimately in that space? Was it
Yeah,
easy for you
I
to?
was a lot. It was a lot for me because I had a lot of milk. Like we would both wake up, like the sheets would be wet, and he was like, "Oh, I must have sweat last night." I'm like, "Mm-hmm, yep." That's what happened. So it really was because for some people, the breasts are like the light switch that turn on the tree, like Rockefeller Plaza. And then for some people, the breasts are like one of the switches that turn on all the lights, right?
Right.
So it's just one of many things. So for me, it was the switch. And I'm like, if I can't have my breast touch, then I can't get into it, then I don't want to
Mm,
do it. So you
mm,
really have to come to terms with different ways of pleasure, but also
mm,
think of intimacy as something beyond or more than just penetration.
mhm,
Like we think
mhm,
of sex as just like a penis going in vagina. Well, there are
right.
so many other ways to do this. And you don't always have to make a home run either. That was another thing I had to come to terms with. You don't always have to make a home run. You can go to first base and you're like, can we just do first base tonight? It's a
Mhm.
gradual thing, but you have to communicate that because somebody can't be
Right.
in this. They're like, I'm about to, and then you're like, actually, we're gonna stop right here.
Right, right. Yeah, that could be a bit
this is my
frustrating.
this is my zone of comfort right here. So that's why we have to communicate. Like I'm like,
Mhm,
you know what, tonight I'm feeling, kind of jazzy.
mhm,
So
mhm.
I think I can make it to like second base. But you also have to find what these things are, like different
Right.
forms of intimacy, whether it's
Mhm.
kissing, whether it's hugging. It could just be spooning and cuddling and things like that and watching a movie. Maybe the people haven't been that close at all, like physical
Right.
touch,
Right.
just literally physical touch. So
Mhm.
defining what that is for your relationship, and that's what I had to do for mine. And then just frequent communication that my partner still has needs. And I have to understand them and be respectful of them. But my needs right in this moment actually trump their needs because I'm
Mhm.
going through some hormonal things. So yes, constant communication.
Yeah. I found in my first experience, like I was super protective of my breast.
Hmm.
Like, although my breast is one of my spots,
Hmm.
I can kind of take it or leave it. And
Hmm.
so with that change, I was a little nervous, but I was really protective. And it was almost like I felt like I had to, after we were involved, to almost
Hmm.
wash with some antibacterial soap to get ready for, to birth this baby. It was
Right.
almost like, all right, they're for him, now they're for the baby. It's like,
Hmm.
and so I was like, whoa, okay, Mama Bear just really came out on
Yeah,
this.
some people can have that separation, but then I have
Oh,
some clients and they're like, "Oh, the baby be in the front and my partner be in the back," and I'm like, "That's way too much stimulation for me. Too many things going on at one time." But
girl.
also, we have to realize that there are several different things that have to be in place for our bodies
Mhm.
to be in it. It has to be mind and body.
Right,
Doesn't necessarily have to be that way for our partner
right.
because of their different hormonal makeup right
Mhm,
now.
mhm,
So for us,
mhm.
it has to be mind about like our body can be in it, but then just when we like really about to really let go and like really fully be in it, we think about, did I feed the dog?
Girl, don't tell them that. They think we're there with them the whole way.
Did I
Oh,
take the clothes out of the dryer? Oh, I can't leave the clothes in the dryer because they're gonna get sour. So I gotta hold on just a second. Like so those things like that, like it will really throw things off. And it can be vice versa, like where your mind is in it and then your body just doesn't respond.
yeah,
And that goes into the hormonal changes that happen with prolactin
right.
and estrogen.
Yeah, sometimes it's wonderful when you have a partner who is super supportive,
Hmm.
just understanding. I mean, you
Yeah.
already spent hopefully your first 6 weeks, trying to let your body
Hmm.
heal. So, of
Yes.
course, they're super anxious. They're trying to figure out their new space in this.
Hmm.
Is it going to be anything like it was before the baby came? All that. Am I going to fall in? Like all that stuff.
Oh, they truly have it. They truly think like, so there was a research study done, and it was with heterosexual men
Mhm.
in heterosexual relationships, and they were talking about, they really equated having a baby to having a period. So they thought like 7 days and you gravy, and I'm like, that's not how this works.
Wow.
So we really encourage people. I don't necessarily use the 6 week guideline,
Mhm.
just because it can be arbitrary and everybody's body is different. Because also people look at that, some people that are not the postpartum person look at that and they like have their calendars marked like today is the day.
It's going down, right.
Going down. They bought wine, rose petals, a meal, and they were like, I'm sorry, where something happened today?
Right.
So I really don't like to put that out there. I was like, you know
Right.
what? It's how
Mhm.
the body feels. Number one, have you
Absolutely.
stopped bleeding?
Mhm.
That's number one, because we don't want to go up in there because we're open. So
Right.
as the elders say, you open.
Right.
You don't want any of that to happen, any infections or anything like that. But number two, like, how do you feel physically? And some people like, and one study I looked at, it said that it takes people like, they say around 6 to 9 months is when they feel
Hmm.
comfortable.
Hmm.
Whereas the partner is more like 4 to 6 days. I was like, that's a huge discrepancy.
Yeah. That's kind of big right there.
It's
You
kind of
know,
big.
right, right.
So
And then sometimes we feel obligated.
yes.
I mean, I think that's where we run into some of the moms who come in for their 6 week appointment and are pregnant already. And it's
Oh,
like, hey, and
mm-hmm.
so it's like you have to lovingly find ways to help them to realize that it's important for your body to heal and to be okay
Yes.
between having babies, and to re-up on all your nutrients and vitamins and all that, and to get to know the baby you just had,
Right.
and the new dynamics it brings to your family. And so, but unfortunately, all of that does not top that look of a partner ready to go.
The
And it's
snapback.
like, right,
Yes.
right.
Yes. Yes.
So it's so important to be able to really have this conversation with our partners that this is the baby that we had. It may be coming out of my
We.
body, but you put it up in there, and I need
Right.
your patience for a moment,
Right.
for us to, figure this all out.
Right. And I think another paradigm is that of single moms, where they want to have a new partner and they're like,
Right.
how do I explain the breast leakage situation? Like they weren't really in on this from the beginning. So how do I explain to them? I was like, well, you just say, hey, I'm breastfeeding my baby.
Mhm.
It may leak a little bit. So
Yep.
how you feel about that?
Feel about that.
We
Right.
need to have a conversation, things like that. But also, I want to encourage people, and this is where I had to have a whole Zoom with my elders about, because they had questions about it. I have aunts who are 80 years old, and many of them, their spouses have passed, and they're like, "So what am I supposed to do now?" I was like, "Self intimacy," and they're like, "Oh no!" And my family is Pentecostal, so that was not an easy subject to talk about, but we all have to think about self intimacy as a form of self care
Mhm.
and see like vibrators and things like that as medical devices, because a lot of people use it. It creates stimulation. And what stimulation is blood flow. That's what stimulation is. It is blood flow. If we have blood flow, things will grow, things will flourish, things will moisturize themselves. Things. If there's no blood flow, it will be dry. And it will not work properly. And as I tell my mother and my aunts and all of them,
Mhm.
hey, if you don't use it, you will lose it. And they think I'm lying, but it will dry up. So we
Okay.
have to think about, and it can already be dry
Mhm.
because of the breastfeeding hormones. Prolactin does not like anything sexually related. So it's gonna, if it's up here, estrogen is down here because they don't even play well together. But
Mhm.
once you start, and then it keeps it really. So if you don't have estrogen, you can have a drier vagina. So you can use lubricants, lubricants that are equivalent to the pH of your vagina, so you're not walking away from the situation with bacterial vaginosis.
Right.
Right, which is you don't even because you already feeling some type of way about your body. And then if
Mm,
you have smells and things going on, you're
mhm,
gonna be like, I'm broken, and you're not.
mhm. Right, right.
So finding a lubricant that is around. So our vaginas are kind of like the pH of a nectarine, if we were to think about a fruit.
Okay.
It's a little acidic. So there's some like Good Clean Love and things like that are more like that pH, which
Mhm,
aren't going to cause that a pH imbalance. So using that, don't be afraid to use that. It doesn't mean that you're broken. It just means that you are dealing with your situation. This is your situation. Trying to
mhm.
breastfeed your baby, keep your supply up. You're not
Right,
about to stop breastfeeding in order to self lubricate, are you? If
all
that's
right.
what you want to do, that's
Mhm,
cool. But if it's
mhm.
not, if you want to maintain both, then that can help with some of the discomfort that you may be feeling.
All right. So since we were talking about intimacy after giving birth and waiting
Hmm.
the time which is good, depending on the individual.
Yeah.
If you don't want to have a child, I know that there's certain birth control methods that
Hmm.
are for breastfeeding and against.
Right.
So how does a mom figure that out in her
Right.
journey?
So you don't want anything estrogen related because remember I said prolactin and estrogen don't work well together. If you have
Okay.
estrogen in there, and this is almost immediate, y'all, it
Hmm.
would immediately dry you up, like your
Wow.
milk up.
Wow.
Like within 48 hours,
Wow.
it's going to dry, it's going to drastically decrease if you do it within that 6 week time. Now, there
Mhm,
is some research that says, like, oh, after the 6 weeks, then you can start something with little estrogen. Everyone's different. I
mhm,
don't test that, right?
mhm, mhm,
So, progestin only um, is helpful. Progestin only pills are the type of pills you have to take every day at the exact same time. So if
mm,
you're not every day at the exact same time, then you need to find like a barrier method.
mhm, mhm,
Um, IUDs. IUDs are a great option if you don't have any contraindications like fibroids and any other things like that that may contraindicate you. Have seen in the hospital setting, there's a trend of inserting IUDs before you leave the hospital after having a baby. That is very
mhm.
controversial
Yeah.
in that that junk can come out. And we don't need those types of issues.
Right,
Um,
right.
so you have IUD method, which is literally it's an insertion into the cervix.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
you do have some options. You have other barrier methods. You have condoms, you know, which can work. It's 80% effective if used correctly and it's the correct size. So you have that. When you have the implants, some people have some issue. They have the a depot, which
mhm,
is a progestin only. Just think about when the next time you want to have a baby. It's
mhm.
a every 3 months thing. Same with the IUD. Think about what your family planning is like. Is it a 3 month, a 3 year, 5 year, 10 year situation
Mm,
with IUDs? And then you have the rhythm method. You have to track your periods. Like you have to be on it. You have to be organized. You have to know your body, really be in tune with your body, know when that ovulation is coming. The problem with breastfeeding is you don't know when you're ovulating. So if you're breastfeeding consistently, that period for most people, now I know somebody's gonna say, Nurse Nikki, 3 months in, I was breastfeeding every
right, right.
all 8 times a day, and that period still
Mhm,
comes. Everybody's different, right?
right.
But for the most part, the period should stay at bay. But that doesn't mean you can ovulate and not bleed.
That's good
And
to know.
that's how I got that third one in there. That's how
Well, all
she's like,
right.
hello. So you can't ovulate and not bleed. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about family planning.
Mhm.
And when I say family planning, meaning not to start a add on or to add on. All right, we want to be inclusive with that, and that some people just like one is enough, or
Right.
none. Right.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
think about that as you're moving forward.
All right. Girl, thank you for all of that wonderful information. I know we were
You're
all over the
welcome.
place, but I know someone was like,
No,
"Oh,
no.
yes," and now, "Oh, yes, that too, yes." It's we have to have these conversations, and I think the
Correct.
more that people see information from us, professionals in
Mhm.
our field, talking about them just informally,
Mm-hmm.
the more people will come to understand that this is natural and it's okay.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's all right
okay.
if you have any questions. And in fact, I want you to please share with everyone your social media handles and how you may
Mhm.
be reached, so that they know how they can support and also learn what they need to learn from you and catch you.
Yes. Oh, yes. I am on Facebook and Instagram at Nurse Nikki NP. And you're more than welcome to send me a message and say, I have a question, or you can post it on any of my posts, anything like that. But I really want to make sure that folks get the education, because we can thrive out here. Like, I don't want us to sit in our silos and say, well, I didn't know, or I'm afraid to ask. And I hope that I create an environment on my pages and in my practice here in Houston where folks can really, ask those questions that they may not have. Because when I tell you I get questions, I get the questions in the DMs. So yeah.
No, absolutely. And of course, as you get those questions, there's definitely other people who have the same
Yes,
questions.
same
And
thing.
so, it's just, and it's like, oh, you too. And I think that's part of like our momentum in which we, especially around Black breastfeeding, have
Hmm.
created with the help of, powerful individuals and organizations where it's like, wow, when we see each other doing a thing and learning from each other and having these questions and realizing we have all the same questions and things
Yeah.
going on, it's like, whoa, I'm gonna be okay. And I found
Hmm.
my tribe. And if I don't feel like I'm gonna be okay, there's people that I can ask.
Hmm.
Girl, I had to put my glasses on so I can see some of we have some people joining us. And unfortunately, for some reason, it hasn't listed their name. I have a few people on Instagram.
Hmm.
Um, Piper Stout too. Thank you for joining us. There are a couple people coming in and out. We're getting the love. And
Oh, thank you.
so someone was saying it's interesting. I find the issue with breastfeeding and elders to be a cultural disparity among Black people versus African. I'm Nigerian
Hmm.
in breastfeeding and is expected and supported versus not. Okay,
Yeah.
right, right.
Hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's
It's
also Mhm.
oh, go ahead.
No, no, please, you.
I think the cultural norms are just different. I think when we look at our elders and ancestry and things like that, and what we associate, we have some negative associations with breastfeeding,
Mhm.
especially with colonization and things like that. So we, when sometimes when Mama Bug at Rose and said growing a rose from concrete, that's essentially what we're doing in a lot of our spaces because nobody in our family or there's this huge gap
Right,
of
right.
not breastfeeding, and that is running deep, right? Those roots are deep of why they're not breastfeeding or what they've been taught or different things that they've heard. So we literally have to break these generational, not curses, but just norms, generational
Right,
norms, and create
right.
our own.
And and I tell some of my my parents who come in with their elders,
Hmm.
we're giving them all this great information and the benefits, and especially now with COVID,
Hmm.
oh, you really need to be breastfeeding.
Right.
And so sometimes an elder can feel a certain kind of way where it's like, oh, I didn't breastfeed,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you came out all right. And
Hmm.
you see them feeling a certain kind of way. And it's like, look, we didn't know any better.
Right.
Formula was pushed on us in our community.
Hmm.
And
Very
so you
heavy.
did the best that you thought was available to do.
Yes.
Either there were circumstances in which you couldn't breastfeed, but you thought formula was just as effective as breastfeeding.
Hmm.
So
And that's
now
what
that
you
we
had. You
all
had to
right,
do things to survive, right?
right,
So,
absolutely.
mhm,
Absolutely. So it's like, in no way are we trying to take away from
no,
what is part of our past, but we're also trying to heal some of that was taken from us
yes,
by reclaiming it and healing and being properly nurtured by our tribe, our family, our
mhm,
community, for better outcomes for our children.
yes, yes. I experienced that with my mother, and she's like, "I guess y'all turned out our way." I'm like, "Well, I got this twitch that could have been fixed with some breast milk."
Oh my goodness, don't do that to your
But
girl.
oh, I had to get it. I had to get it. But all of my sisters breastfed, and like I learned from him. I've learned from them that
Mhm.
like I'm like I don't know what I'm doing, because they're like, well, they're just the rebels of the family, and they're like, I'm gonna do it, so then you have to do it. And so now my
Mhm.
mother's she was in San Francisco and the lady was breastfeeding. She was like, I'm so proud of you. I was like, you went up to that woman? She's like, because I am like, I don't see it as much, but I'm so happy to see people do it. Even though I wasn't able to, she was
Mhm.
just giving misinformation. She was told that she couldn't
Mm.
breastfeed with mastitis. And that, it's so many
Mm.
often even now we still get misinformation, of, oh, you can't take that medication while breastfeeding, so you have to stop, right? And nobody's looked up anything.
Right.
So there's a lot of misinformation still floating out there and attaching to
Still.
certain communities. Yes.
Still, it's amazing. We still need to help get our healthcare providers on the same page with, lactation professionals, and other support so that we're all kind of saying the same thing.
Right.
So there's still so much work to do. It feels like we've
Hmm.
come so far.
Yeah.
There's still so much work to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of our other people joining us said that they found that breastfeeding changed their erogenous zone. So,
Hmm.
okay, yeah,
Yes.
that's great.
That's great. That's great. And
Mhm.
just having a baby in general can change your erogenous zone because
Absolutely.
things change down
Absolutely.
there.
Yep, absolutely.
They change for
But you know
sure.
what? Hey, you sometimes take that as a opportunity to be like,
Hmm.
oh, hey, partner, guess what?
Yes,
We
it's
need to
new. It's new
revisit
and
this
fresh.
and
Yes.
figure out what works, what is working now.
Right, right. And I encourage people to do that even before they're with their partner. Let's say you
Mhm.
have some alone time to yourself and you're like, I really want to be intimate, but I don't want to be embarrassed if I can't follow through in some
Right,
way or whatever. I
right,
said, be intimate with yourself, or not even, don't think of it as intimate, just self discovery. Like, go ahead and put your finger down there around your vulva and see if you have any tender spots. What feels good, what doesn't. So
right,
then when your partner is there, you're like, oh, just avoid that spot. Just tell them ahead of time to
right.
not make it an awkward situation,
Yeah,
so they avoid it. So
yep.
you already know. So that'd be helpful. Again, communication is key.
Yeah, because I find that sometimes us as women, we just deliver our bodies places. Oh, I'm pregnant. I'm just going to deliver my body to my doctor. They'll tell me what I need to do and what to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
They
no,
don't
no, no,
really know.
no. Right. Or you deliver your body to your partner. And it's like, no, no, no. You are responsible for helping to get yourself. Now, your partner
Right,
hopefully feels like they want to help you get there as well. But
right.
that's that wonderful dance of intimacy. Both of you
Yes.
all working, not you just, okay,
Mm-hmm.
get it together, get me off. you know,
Figure
kind
it out.
of,
Don't send nobody down there just to figure it out. You just
Ooh,
had a baby.
right. Because I think in that we get very disappointed. And a lot of us
Yes.
find that we're disappointed because we aren't more proactive about ourselves
Mm-hmm.
from all parts of our body. And
Right.
so once again, I so appreciate you for helping us to talk about the breast part and everything else
Yes.
of our bodies, and feeling more empowered, knowing that there are wonderful resources out there.
Mhm.
Sis, of course, I meant to ask you, how are you doing? I know you are back in your home state of Texas now, right?
I am. I
Okay.
am back in
All right.
Tejas.
Yeah.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great and trying to figure out my way. It's different from New Orleans, but I still do a lot of work in New Orleans. Still have my practice there, and I will be practicing here starting next month. So
Oh,
I'm excited.
that is a blessing. You are such a blessing. And again,
Thank
I so
you.
appreciate you for joining
I
BSTARS
appreciate
to
you.
talk about
Thank
this.
you.
And I look forward to us working together in the near future.
Yes,
I miss
yes.
you.
But you
I
haven't
know
seen
this
in
darn
forever.
COVID, thing.
I know we would have seen each other at least a good 3, 4
Right, right. I need my Nikki fix. But I'm gonna get it.
Oh, thank
This
you.
was one of these selfish things in which I was like, yeah, every BSTARS needs Nikki. But I was like, I want to see her hang out. So again, I
Nikisha and I have
appreciate
been
you.
fangirling. Oh, I said, I'm gonna talk to her. And they were like, oh, really? Oh, okay.
Oh, y'all are my girls. Oh, I appreciate you all and then you are doing some just like innovative, wonderful, even like different work in the field. I love it. I love how we
Thank you.
work. I love how we don't hate on each other. Like we were talking
Mhm.
about, there's so much to do. And even
Yeah.
as you were talking about the different regions, how the work is different from Louisiana to
Mhm.
Texas, that there's like all these nuancy things where there's enough for everybody who wants to do
So
this and
much.
support, get in where you fit in because it's
So much.
needed,
Yes, absolutely.
and
We're here
support
to
each other.
we're
Girl,
here to
isn't it
collaborate over competition. It's no
absolutely?
competition.
Ain't it amazing all
Mm-mm.
the things that breastfeeding can do?
Yes.
Well, again, thank you. I hope you have a good evening, and I look
Yes.
forward to talking to you soon.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you for everyone that joined us this evening. I appreciate y'all. Thank
All
you.
right. All right. Well, take care.
All right. Bye,
All
sis.
right. Bye.
Bye.